process of raising Kundalini, this enlightenment that comes from this process that takes you out of your human condition. Ultimately, consciousness is not to be shared with your humanity. The point of being conscious, in I say conscious loosely, the point, because you're really supposed to be doing the alchemy. You're really supposed to be transforming. You need to be conscious to be able to take those steps. So technically, just being conscious is not enough. Being conscious is just saying you're aware that something is rotten, something's wrong, right, something's not normal. That's really what consciousness is. But consciousness is a blanket way of trying to label a people or a mindset. But really, all it is the beginning point of you beginning to study. So someone saying you're conscious does not mean you have automatically crossed over into enlightenment. So consciousness does not equal enlightenment. Consciousness makes you aware. And right, you're only aware that you're not actually just a mindless zombie human. So when you'll hear me talking about humanity and you try to champion this human cause and trees and bees, the mere fact that you say you're conscious is a contradiction, because the idea of consciousness is to say you are no longer participating in what the mindless, everyday minutia, the routine that everyone else is doing. You are no longer thinking as easy and as less complex and as whatever's put in front of you as the average person. Why? Because you're conscious. So consciousness is step one in starting to find enlightenment. So if we had to label or narrow down what the process of finding enlightenment is, don't get confused. It's not one way to find enlightenment. Knowledge is endless. Therefore, there are endless ways to find enlightenment. But the only thing that must hold true is you must be searching for enlightenment, and the idea is you didn't find it as a human. Therefore, you are searching in other advanced places. You have a faith or a belief or understanding there's something greater than you that walks around, or that's in you, that something's greater than you than walks around and experiences just this world with five senses. Five senses, or your ego, represents humanity. Therefore, if you're conscious and you're seeking enlightenment, you're not seeking to perfect humanity. You're not seeking to perfect or enhance what it is that can be enhanced by the average Joe. You're trying to do something else. You're trying to do something that is not normally done. Just like Leo said in The Matrix, this works because it was never done before. There's titles for this. It's called The Left-Hand Path. It's called The Journey of the Hero. So there are titles for this. This isn't something I'm making up. This is an idea that is old as the beginning of time, stepping outside of the box. The problem is, they think because we're in church and we're so exploited, if you do something African, which seems to be of a higher frequency than what's happening in America, that you have somehow made it, or you have somehow went to the next level. But even in the time where Africans reigned supreme, the person who stepped outside of the box then would still be considered the alchemist, would still be considered the conscious person if everybody else was doing African shit. So it's not even about a traditional group setting or a traditional setting of this versus that. It's about the individual stepping out of the group and coming up with his own interpretation, coming up with his own experiment, becoming the scientific mind, the scientist mentality to come up with forms of light for your own personal transformation. And oddly enough, becoming the example of it is how you help others, as opposed to this agenda of helping others, which is nothing more than just some cultural, traditional, Wheezy from the help center shit. So if you had to narrow this down, or this process down, or this understanding of enlightenment down, Kundalini is the thing that comes up constantly. Kundalini enlightenment is the what it always seems to come down to. So we're going to deal with some statements. I'm going to go through some notes. About some of these Kundalini things. Hendrik Zimmerman. This is something Hendrik Zimmerman observed. The best things can't be told. The second best are misunderstood. So basically, what I find is people's understanding of a lot of these terms we use are misunderstood, because what's happening is they're taking these advanced terms, as I just laid it out, that these things are supposed to be understood so you can go on a otherworldly adventure, or an adventure that's outside of the normal, how could you say, routine, normal, everyday interpretation of planet Earth. So the Kundalini experience that you're supposed to have is not one where you say, well, I was eating a sandwich and I had a Kundalini experience. I got some good old pussy and had a Kundalini experience. I was sleeping and had a Kundalini experience. Those things can happen. Those things will happen. But ultimately, they're like anything, there are levels, and you're trying to have this Kundalini experience to go beyond the norm. So the best things can't be told. So that means someone who's telling, when you're in my group asking, well, what does this feel like? And what does that feel like? No one can tell you that. You're going to have to do some work, because the best of what this is cannot be told to you. So when you're trying to figure out panic, why is this, and do you do that panic, and do you do this panic? If I did that or didn't do that, it doesn't matter, because you will not have the experience until you try it. So it cannot be told to you. And then again, if you don't understand these terms or have a clear understanding on the goal, you will misunderstand what this shit is about. Now, in earlier times when esoteric knowledge was under jealous guard, and the spiritual aspirant usually had to endure years of patient waiting before he was taught. Now that information is available basically everywhere. Books, tapes, CDs, online. Secret doctrines can now be purchased and easily possessed. It does not mean they are easily comprehended, though they can be easily possessed. The words can be taught, sold, and the living wisdom cannot be confined within words, but still must be earned. Still must be earned. So, in other words, watching YouTube, buying a nice book collection from Amazon is not going to do it for you. Is not going to do it for you. This is a Kundalini, raising Kundalini, dealing with Kundalini is a process. It's not an overnight thing. It's not a destination. It is the primal energy in you, and it is always renewed, always changing. It is always life force. It is always will have a new meaning depending on what it is you're dealing with and why it is you're doing this particular work. So, again, you've heard me talk to you before about agenda, and you having this agenda, and you doing things for your agenda, you can never go further than your agenda. Mm-hmm. This is the same thing as having a religion or a group. The group is a group based upon the rules of the group. And if you do ungroup shit, you are no longer in the group. If you do shit that's against the religion, you are no longer a religious person. Exactly. Therefore, you're limited by its very nature. So, for most people who are conscious, or who call themselves conscious, they have given up their religion. Perhaps some have given up their group, but they have traded it in for an agenda, for a goal, And what I've come to learn that your goal should be no goal. The only goal is to actually understand that there is no goal. That knowledge, again, is endless, boundless, and therefore cannot be constrained by definition, religion, grouping, or names. Once you start to, and mind you, I'm explaining this to you so you can try to adapt a mentality to begin your study, to dealing with your study. So it's easy to get these things. There was a time, again, this was guarded with zeal and jealousy, but how come you think it's all on the web now? How come you think no one's, this Illuminati or whoever the fuck you believe is controlling you, hasn't stopped this now? Because they understand if you do not understand it, if you do not comprehend the wisdom in the way it should be comprehended, then it's worthless. I don't care how much melanin you got. If you don't know how to exact it, then it's worthless. Worthless. No matter if you know all the lingo. Hotep, no matter how many times you said Hotep, it makes you no more magical. No more magical. We need to adopt the understanding or the mentality. That's what I find after all of these years of talking and interfacing with people. We just don't understand the mentality that it takes for us to even begin our process. Forget what it is we're learning, because the knowledge is everywhere. That's not hard to figure it out. Real secrets are secrets because no one understands them. That's what makes them a secret.
Right.
That's what makes them a secret. It's not you're getting secret information because it's on YouTube and Panic said it or Bobby said it or Brother Aleem said it. That's not secret information. The real secret is you don't understand it. That's what makes it a secret. One cannot even talk about them or even such a kind of experience if you're dealing with Kundalini. Because these secrets will be revealed because you're having a first-hand experience with the light. You get what I'm saying? Kundalini is the source of all your experiences. Kundalini is that indwelling energy by which self-identifying with your options and characteristics, traits, preserves your identity, and it preserves your identity. Basically, it is who you are. It is who you are. When you start dealing with this Kundalini energy, or know you're supposed to be raising Kundalini, and we'll get into some techniques, and I'm sure Aleem has plenty as well. What you're doing, because what you're doing is you're interfacing with yourself. It's called know thyself, not know thy what George Zimmerman the fuck is doing. You get what I'm saying, or not doing.